My sister dumped her kids on me while she vacationed with our parents. So I vanished and watched their perfect plan collapse overnight. Hey, Reddit. My sister moved into our parents' house, treated me like free childcare while she went on vacation, so I disappeared and left them all scrambling. What followed was absolute chaos. Here's the full story. I'm 22 male. Blake, fresh out of college with a finance degree and what I thought was a solid plan for my life. Graduate high school, check. Get into a decent university, check. Land a real job, check. Move out and start building my own life. Well, that's where things got complicated. After 4 years of college, pulling all-nighters for exams and living on instant noodles, I graduated with honors and a degree that was supposed to open doors. Instead, I found myself right back where I started, my parents' house in a small town in Ohio, where the biggest excitement is Friday night high school football and the grand opening of a new gas station. Don't get me wrong, my parents Rita and Frank are decent people. They worked hard their entire lives to give me and my older sister Vanessa a stable childhood. Dad spent 30 years at the same auto repair shop, coming home every night with grease under his fingernails, and a bad back mom worked part-time at the local library, shelving books and helping elderly residents figure out how to use the computers. They're good people, just not wealthy people, and that became very relevant very quickly. The plan was simple and temporary. Move back home for maybe 3 months, 6 at most, just long enough to job hunt seriously, save up first and last month's rent plus security deposit, then get my own place in the city about 40 minutes away. It seemed logical. No rent payment, home-cooked meals, a chance to regroup and plan my next move without the pressure of immediate expenses. I convinced myself this was strategic thinking, even though moving back into my childhood bedroom at 22 felt like admitting defeat. My college friends were all signing leases for apartments in major cities, posting photos of their new places on social media, talking about their exciting urban lives. Meanwhile, I was unpacking boxes in a room that still had my high school basketball trophies on the shelf. But I told myself it was temporary, just a brief pit stop before real life began. Things actually started well. Within the first week, I landed a position as a financial analyst at Midwest Planning Group, a mid-sized firm that helps small businesses with financial strategy and investment planning. The pay wasn't amazing, about $42,000 a year, but it was steady work with decent benefits and room for advancement. More importantly, it was a real job using my actual degree, not some temporary gig or retail position. I came home that evening feeling legitimately good about myself for the first time since graduation. I'd taken the first real step toward independence and financial stability. Mom was in the kitchen making her usual Friday meatloaf, and Dad was in the living room with the TV on, half watching some home improvement show he'd seen 3 times already. I grabbed a plate, sat down at the kitchen table where I'd eaten 1,000 meals growing up, and shared my news with genuine excitement in my voice. Got the job, I announced. Start Monday morning at 8. For exactly 2 seconds, I thought they'd be excited. I expected congratulations, maybe even a, we're proud of you, or we knew you'd figure it out. You know, normal parent responses to your kid landing their first real career job. Instead, they exchanged what I can only describe as the look. That silent communication thing parents do, where entire conversations happen through eye contact and subtle facial expressions. When you see the look, you know something bad is coming. It's never followed by good news. Mom set down the wooden spoon she'd been using to stir gravy and gave me this tight, forced smile that didn't reach her eyes. That's wonderful, Blake. Really. We knew you'd find something. Then Dad cleared his throat in that way he does before delivering news he knows you won't like. We've actually been meaning to talk to you about something. My stomach dropped. Those 9 words have never preceded anything good in the history of family conversations. Mom folded her hands on the table and launched into what sounded like a rehearsed speech. With my arthritis getting worse, I've had to cut my hours at the library from 25 to 15 per week. The pain in my hands makes it hard to shelve books or type for long periods. Dad jumped in before I could process that information. And my hours at the shop got reduced. Tom's talking about more layoffs if business doesn't pick up. Been slow for months now with people keeping their old cars longer instead of getting work done. I already knew exactly where this conversation was heading, but I let them finish anyway. We could really use some help with the household expenses, Mom said, with that apologetic expression she'd perfected over years of asking for things, just until our situation stabilizes. You wouldn't have to pay rent or anything like that, just help with utilities, groceries, the basic bills we're not asking for much. When I'd moved back home, I'd figured I'd contribute here and there, maybe buy my own food and cover my personal expenses, This was a completely different financial commitment, but these were my parents who'd raised me, who'd helped pay for part of my college when my scholarships didn't cover everything, who'd always been there when I needed them. The guilt was immediate and overwhelming. Yeah, of course, I heard myself say, forcing what I hoped looked like a supportive smile. It's the least I can do after everything you've done for me. Looking back now, that was the exact moment I should have set clear boundaries and established expectations. But guilt is a powerful manipulator, and family guilt is its nuclear option. You can't think straight when someone who changed your diapers and drove you to soccer practice is asking for help. For the next few months, life settled into a routine that felt increasingly like a trap. Closing around me, I'd wake up at 6:30 every morning, drive 40 minutes to work through traffic that made me question my life choices, spend 9 hours analyzing financial data and taking client calls, then drive another 40 minutes home exhausted. By the time I walked through the door, all I wanted was food and maybe an hour of peace before crashing. Instead, I'd find a list of tasks waiting for me. Every 2 weeks when my paycheck hit my account, that direct deposit notification that used to feel exciting, I'd immediately transfer a significant chunk to my parents for household expenses. Then I'd watch my remaining balance and feel that familiar sinking sensation in my stomach. At first, it was $300 a month. Reasonable, I thought. Just helping with groceries and utilities like any adult child living at home might do. Then Mom mentioned the water heater was making weird noises and might need replacing soon, so could I maybe do $350 to build up a repair fund? Sure, made sense. Then it became $400 because the furnace did actually need repairs, and they depleted that repair fund on other things. Then $500 because property taxes went up. Though Dad never showed me the actual bill, I just had to trust that number was accurate. Then $550 because groceries were getting more expensive and gas prices had jumped. Then $600 because the car needed new brakes and the credit card payment was due. Every single month there was a new reason why they needed just a bit more dental emergency. A prescription that insurance didn't fully cover. The lawnmower died and needed replacing. The kitchen sink started leaking. The cable bill went up. On and on. An endless parade of expenses that somehow always fell on my shoulders. I'd hand over that money every time, because what else could I do? Let my parents lose their house? Let them go without medication? Let their car fall apart so Dad couldn't get to work? The guilt made it impossible to say no. Even as I watched my savings account refuse to grow beyond $2,000 no matter how hard I tried. But it wasn't just the money, though that alone would have been crushing enough. It was everything else that came with it. Blake, can you run to the store for me? My hands are really hurting today and I can't grip the steering wheel properly. Blake, can you help your dad with the car? The diagnostic computer is showing an error code he doesn't understand. Blake, can you explain this utility bill? I don't understand why it's so high and I think they might be overcharging us. Blake, can you figure out why the internet isn't working? Your father tried resetting the router, but nothing's happening. Blake, can you take a look at this letter from the insurance company? I don't understand what they're asking for. Blake, can you help me figure out how to use this new phone? All my contacts disappeared and I don't know how to get them back. Every small task they didn't want to handle or couldn't figure out became my responsibility. Never mind that I was working 45 hours a week and trying to build my own career. Never mind that I was exhausted and stressed and barely keeping my head above water financially. I was the young person with energy and computer skills and basic problem-solving abilities. So everything fell to me. Mom's arthritis became a catch-all excuse for me to handle anything physical. Grocery shopping, carrying laundry, cleaning the gutters, moving furniture, even just reaching items on high shelves. Dad's lack of technical knowledge meant I was the IT department for every device in the house. The TV remote stopped working. The printer wouldn't connect. The thermostat needed reprogramming. All my job. Every single day brought new requests that started as questions, but were really just polite-sounding commands. Can you really meant you're going to, and refusing meant dealing with disappointed looks and comments about how they'd raised me better than this. I was living in their house, eating their food, even though I was paying for most of it. So according to their logic, I owed them not just money, but my time, energy, and complete availability. My own life, my own needs, my own exhaustion didn't factor into the equation at all. My savings account stayed perpetually stuck around $2,000 like it was cursed. Every time I'd manage to get it up to $2,500, something would happen. The water heater would break, and suddenly I'd need to contribute $800 for the replacement. Dad's truck would need new tires, and could I help with $350? Mom's prescription medication would cost more than expected because insurance denied part of the claim. Could I cover the $200 difference? "We'll pay you back when things stabilize," became their constant refrain. Repeated so often it lost all meaning. Things never stabilized. There was always another emergency, another unexpected expense, another reason why they couldn't possibly pay me back right now, but definitely would soon. The repayment schedule kept getting pushed back, month after month, until it became clear there was never any intention of paying me back at all. My college friends stopped inviting me out because I could never afford it. Going to dinner meant spending $20 I didn't have. Meeting up for drinks, well, that wasn't happening, period, given the restrictions. Even just driving to the city to hang out cost gas money I'd already mentally allocated to household bills. The dream of moving to the city, getting my own apartment, and starting my actual adult life faded a little more each month. I'd scroll through apartment listings late at night, looking at studios and one-bedrooms I couldn't afford, imagining a life where I had my own space and my own rules. Whenever I'd mention wanting to save more aggressively for my own place, Mom would respond with some variation of, "Must be nice to think about moving out when the rest of us are barely getting by." Dad was even worse. Any money I spent on myself, new work shoes when my old ones wore out, a better phone when mine died, would trigger comments about how some people don't understand how hard it is to make ends meet. The guilt was constant and exhausting. I wasn't just contributing financially, I was being emotionally manipulated into feeling bad about having normal 22-year-old aspirations. But I told myself it was temporary. They were my parents. They'd always taken care of me. And now it was my turn to help them through a rough patch. Once their financial situation improved, I'd be able to focus on my own goals. I actually believed that. Right up until my sister decided to blow up what was left of my life. It was a Friday evening in late April. I'd just gotten home from work, exhausted from a week of back-to-back client meetings and financial analysis reports. I was looking forward to a quiet evening of maybe ordering takeout and watching something mindless on Netflix. Just a normal, boring Friday night where nobody needed anything from me. Mom was in the kitchen doing dishes. Dad was outside in the garage, probably tinkering with some project he'd never finish. Everything seemed normal. Then the doorbell rang. I opened the front door to find my older sister Vanessa standing on the porch looking completely frazzled, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her expression somewhere between desperate and entitled. Behind her stood Dylan, her husband, hauling multiple suitcases like a pack mule. And running around the front yard, like they'd just consumed their body weight in sugar, were her two kids, Sophie, age 5, and Noah, age 3. "Surprise!" Vanessa announced, with a forced smile that didn't match the chaos surrounding her. I just stood there, completely blindsided, trying to process what I was seeing. Behind Vanessa, Dylan looked exhausted, sweat dripping down his face as he carried what appeared to be their entire household worth of belongings. "What's going on?" I finally managed to ask, stepping aside as Vanessa brushed past me like she owned the place. "We need a place to stay for a little while," she said, already heading for the living room. She dropped her purse on the couch and let out this dramatic sigh. Dylan's consulting gig ended, and with my online boutique slowing down, we couldn't keep up with the rent on our apartment. You know how tough the economy is right now. Except I didn't know how you let things get bad enough to pack up your entire family and show up unannounced at someone else's house. There were steps between things are tight and we're homeless now. Steps like budgeting, downsizing, or maybe getting actual jobs instead of calling yourself a consultant and boutique owner. Dylan finally made it through the door, arms full of bags and boxes. "Hey, Blake," he muttered, barely making eye contact before heading upstairs with their stuff like he already knew where he was going. I was still standing in the entryway, trying to understand what was happening, when Mom rushed in from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Oh, my babies!" she exclaimed, pulling Vanessa into a hug. "You poor things. You've been through so much. Don't worry about anything. We'll take care of you." Dad came in from the garage, carrying Noah under one arm like a football. "This one nearly gave me a heart attack," he said, setting the kid down. "Found him trying to climb on the riding mower like it was a carnival ride." Vanessa laughed lightly, but didn't bother apologizing or even acknowledging that her 3-year-old had nearly injured himself because she wasn't watching him. Just a casual laugh and a subject change. That's when I realized this wasn't a quick visit. They were moving in, and nobody had bothered to ask me if I was okay with that. Over the next few days, I watched my already cramped living situation transform into complete chaos that made my previous life look peaceful. By comparison, Vanessa and Dylan took over the guest room, which had previously doubled as Mom's craft space and Dad's home office. Suddenly, all of Mom's sewing supplies and Dad's paperwork got shoved into random closets and corners to make room for my sister's family. But their stuff didn't stay contained to one room. Within 48 hours, it had exploded throughout the entire house like someone had detonated a bomb in a toy factory and children's clothing warehouse. Simultaneously, Sophie's dolls ended up in every single room. Not just a couple dolls, we're talking about an entire collection that must have cost hundreds of dollars: baby dolls, fashion dolls, character dolls from movies I'd never heard of. They were on the couch, the kitchen counter, the bathroom sink, scattered across the hallway floor where I'd trip over them in the dark. Each doll came with accessories, tiny shoes, miniature outfits, plastic furniture that created a minefield throughout the house. Noah's collection of toy trucks and cars rivaled some actual dealerships. He had dump trucks, fire trucks, police cars, race cars, construction vehicles, and vehicles I couldn't even identify. They were scattered across the living room floor in elaborate parking lots that nobody was allowed to disturb because it would make Noah scream. God forbid you needed to walk through the living room to get to the kitchen. You had to navigate this obstacle course of plastic vehicles while a 3-year-old watched you with suspicious eyes, ready to have a meltdown if you accidentally kicked one. Vanessa's boutique inventory took over the dining room completely. Boxes and boxes of jewelry, accessories, scarves, and random items she claimed to sell online, but mostly just accumulated like a dragon hoarding treasure. The dining room table disappeared under piles of merchandise still in packaging. We couldn't eat there anymore, which meant everyone ate in the living room or kitchen, adding to the general chaos. Dylan's laptop and work papers spread across the kitchen table, making it impossible to use that space either. He was supposedly looking for jobs and doing consulting work, but mostly I saw him scrolling through social media and playing phone games. His stuff stayed on the table permanently. Laptop, charger, notebooks, folders, coffee cups he never cleaned up. Every meal meant clearing a space around his junk while he sat in the living room watching TV. The bathroom situation became a nightmare. We had one full bathroom upstairs that everyone shared. Suddenly, that bathroom contained Vanessa's entire beauty routine worth of products. Makeup, hair products, skincare items, nail polish, hair tools, every surface was covered. Dylan's shaving stuff took up what little space remained. The kids' bath toys flooded the tub, and somehow none of them ever cleaned up after themselves. I'd wake up for work and find wet towels on the floor, toothpaste splattered on the mirror, and hair clogging the sink drain. The shower would be full of their bottles of products, leaving no room for my simple soap and shampoo. More than once I had to shower around Sophie's collection of bath toys because nobody had bothered to clean them out. But the real problem, the thing that made all of this infinitely worse, was the kids themselves. Don't get me wrong, Sophie and Noah weren't inherently bad kids. They were just completely undisciplined, overindulged, and exhausting. 5-year-old Sophie would scream at the top of her lungs when she didn't get her way. And I mean scream. Not crying or whining, actual ear-piercing shrieks that made you want to check if someone was being murdered. She'd throw these tantrums over things like her juice being in the wrong color cup or her favorite shirt being in the laundry. 3-year-old Noah had the impulse control of a caffeinated squirrel mixed with the determination of a tiny drunk person. If he wanted something, he went after it with zero regard for consequences. I watched him try to climb the bookshelf to reach a toy on top, attempt to stick a fork in an electrical outlet because he thought it looked interesting, pull the cat's tail hard enough to make the poor animal hiss and scratch him. Then, he'd cry about getting scratched, learn nothing from the experience, and do the same thing an hour later. Neither of them had a bedtime, a normal sleep schedule, or any concept of indoor voices. They'd be running around screaming at 10 p.m. on a weeknight while I was trying to sleep because I had to work the next morning. Vanessa and Dylan would be watching TV, completely ignoring their children's chaos. When I'd ask them to get the kids to settle down, I'd get eye rolls and comments about how I didn't understand kids or needed to be more patient. And Vanessa? She treated her children like they were someone else's problem. The first Saturday after they moved in, I was trying to catch up on work emails in my room when Vanessa knocked on my door. Not a gentle knock, a sharp, demanding rap that immediately put me on edge. Hey Blake, Dylan and I need to run some errands. Can you watch the kids for a couple hours? It wasn't phrased as a question, even though it used question words. It was a statement disguised as a request. Before I could even open my mouth to respond, she was already heading downstairs, calling back over her shoulder, "Thanks, you're the best." Those couple hours turned into 5 hours. 5 hours of Sophie demanding snacks every 15 minutes, but rejecting every option I offered because it wasn't exactly what she wanted. But she couldn't articulate what she actually wanted. 5 hours of Noah having a complete meltdown because his favorite truck was the wrong shade of blue, which somehow meant he couldn't play with any of his other 40 trucks. 5 hours of trying to prevent them from destroying the house, while accomplishing exactly zero actual work. When Vanessa and Dylan finally returned, loaded down with shopping bags full of new clothes and electronics, Vanessa barely acknowledged me. Just a casual thanks before taking the kids upstairs for bath time, while I cleaned up the tornado of toys and spilled juice they'd left in their wake. That became the pattern. Every time Vanessa and Dylan needed to run errands or take care of something, I became the default babysitter. Not asked if I was available, not offered any compensation, not even thanked properly. Just expected to drop whatever I was doing and take care of their kids. The financial situation got worse too. With 4 additional people in the house, 2 adults and 2 kids with endless appetites, the grocery bills doubled. Utility costs went up with everyone home all day, running air conditioning and streaming videos. Mom kept giving me increasingly larger amounts for household expenses, which meant even less going into my savings account. I tried talking to Mom about it once. Suggested maybe Vanessa and Dylan should contribute, since they were living there rent-free and eating our food. They're going through a really tough time right now, Mom said, giving me that disappointed look. The least we can do is help them get back on their feet. Besides, they're family. Right, family. The word that apparently meant I had to sacrifice everything while Vanessa sacrificed nothing. Things came to a breaking point about 6 weeks after they moved in. It was a Tuesday evening and I was exhausted from a particularly brutal day at work. One of our major clients was threatening to leave because their previous financial advisor had made some questionable decisions, and I'd spent 8 hours doing damage control and reviewing account histories. I came home just wanting to decompress, maybe make some dinner and go to bed early. Instead, I found Vanessa and Dylan dressed up like they were going to a nice restaurant. Mom was in the living room with Sophie and Noah, trying to get them to watch a movie and settle down. "Oh, perfect, Blake's home," Vanessa said when she saw me. "Mom's not feeling great. Her arthritis is really acting up. So we need you to watch the kids tonight. We have dinner plans with Dylan's old college friends who are visiting from out of state, should be back by 10. I'd just worked a 9-hour day. My feet hurt. I had a headache. I wanted food and sleep in that order. Can't you reschedule?" I asked. I just got home from work and I'm exhausted. Vanessa's face shifted into what I'd started calling her victim expression. Eyebrows raised, mouth slightly open, like I'd just kicked a puppy. "Are you serious right now? We haven't had a night out together in months. All we do is take care of the kids and stress about money. We need this. Can't you do this one thing for us?" "I've been watching your kids 3 or 4 times a week for the past month and a half," I pointed out. "I haven't had a night off in weeks." "Well, maybe if you were more of a team player instead of thinking only about yourself," Vanessa started, but Mom cut her off. "Blake, please, your sister needs a break. Just this once. Just this once." Except it was never once. It was every single time. I looked at Mom, who was clearly exhausted and in pain. I looked at Vanessa and Dylan, dressed up and ready to enjoy an evening out that they probably couldn't afford, but would put on a credit card anyway. I looked at Sophie and Noah, who were already hyper and showing no signs of settling down anytime soon. "Fine," I said, dropping my work bag on the floor. "But we need to talk about this becoming a permanent arrangement. I can't keep being the free babysitter every time you want to do something." "Of course," Vanessa said quickly, already heading for the door. "We'll definitely figure something out. You're amazing, Blake." "Thanks so much." They were gone before I could respond, leaving me with 2 kids who'd already been wound up all day, and a mother who looked like she needed to lie down immediately. I spent the next 4 hours managing a situation that shouldn't have been my responsibility. Sophie wanted mac and cheese, but only if it was the character-shaped kind we didn't have. Noah refused to wear pants for reasons he couldn't articulate. Both of them fought bedtime, like their lives depended on it, running around screaming until nearly 10 o'clock. By the time Vanessa and Dylan finally walked through the door at 10:45, laughing about some funny thing that happened at dinner, I was done. Completely and utterly done. But I didn't say anything that night. I just went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and started seriously planning my exit strategy. The breaking point came 2 weeks later, though I didn't know it at the time. I came home from work on a Friday to find the house quieter than usual. No kids running around screaming. No Vanessa on her phone complaining about her boutique's poor sales. No Dylan playing video games in the living room. Mom was in the kitchen, and when I walked in, she had this guilty expression that immediately set off alarm bells. "Where is everyone?" I asked. "Oh, they left this morning," Mom said, not quite making eye contact. "Just a little family trip to the lake, should be back Sunday evening." Family trip. The words hit me like a slap. What family trip? "You know, Rita's retirement party at the lake house. The whole family is going. They left this morning." Rita was Mom's older sister. She'd worked as a school administrator for 30 years and was finally retiring. I vaguely remembered Mom mentioning something about it months ago, but nobody had brought it up recently, and I certainly hadn't received an invitation. Nobody told me about this, I said slowly. Mom's guilty expression intensified. Well, we thought you'd be too busy with work to come, and someone needed to stay here to take care of the house and, you know, keep an eye on things. The realization hit me all at once. They'd planned a family vacation. Vanessa, Dylan, the kids, Mom, Dad, probably a bunch of other relatives. And they'd deliberately not told me. Not because they thought I wouldn't want to go, but because they needed someone to stay behind and house sit while they all went off and had fun. So everyone knew about this except me? I asked, my voice dangerously calm. Blake, don't be dramatic. It's just a weekend. Besides, you have work on Monday anyway, so it's not like you could have enjoyed the whole weekend. When did you plan this? I don't know, a few months ago? Rita's been planning her retirement party since a few months, I repeated. So there was plenty of time to tell me. Plenty of opportunities to mention that the entire family was going to a lake house for the weekend. But you just decided I should stay home instead. We thought you'd understand, Mom said defensively. Someone had to stay here, and you're so responsible. We knew we could count on you. That word again. Responsible. The label they used to justify dumping every unwanted task on my shoulders. I walked upstairs without another word, pulled out my phone, and started scrolling through social media. Sure enough, there were already posts going up. Vanessa had posted a selfie with the caption, "Finally, family time at the lake," with everyone in the background. Mom, Dad, Aunt Rita, various cousins I barely kept in touch with, even Uncle Phil, who lived 3 states away and never came to anything. They were all there. Everyone except me. The comments were full of people saying how fun it looked, asking if the whole family was there, telling them to enjoy themselves. Several relatives had tagged photos with me conspicuously cropped out or simply not present. I sat on my bed staring at those photos for probably 30 minutes straight, feeling every ounce of resentment I'd been suppressing for the past year bubble to the surface like magma before a volcanic eruption. The images kept flooding my screen as more relatives posted their own versions. Group shots on the dock, candid photos of everyone laughing around a bonfire, pictures of the kids playing in the lake while adults watched from beach chairs with drinks in hand. Everyone was tagged: Mom, Dad, Vanessa, Dylan, Sophie, Noah, Aunt Rita, Uncle Phil, cousins. I barely remembered the names of. Every single person in our extended family except me. The only nephew who wasn't invited to his aunt's retirement celebration. I'd put my entire life on hold for these people. Drained my savings account from what should have been $5,000 by now, down to barely $2,000. Given up my social life because I could never afford to do anything. Sacrificed my independence and my pride to move back into my childhood bedroom. Worked myself to exhaustion so I could hand over hundreds of dollars every month for bills that weren't really my responsibility. Played free babysitter multiple times a week for kids who weren't mine, while their parents did whatever they wanted. And this was how they repaid me, by deliberately excluding me from family events so I could play house sitter and watch an empty house while they all created memories without me. The worst part wasn't even being excluded. It was the calculated nature of it. This wasn't an oversight or miscommunication. They'd planned this trip months in advance, coordinated travel arrangements, booked rooms at a lake house, organized who was bringing what food, had entire group chat conversations about the logistics that I was never included in. And at no point did anyone think to mention it to me, ask if I wanted to come, or even give me the courtesy of explaining why I wasn't invited. They just decided I should stay home, probably discussed it among themselves. Someone needs to watch the house. Blake's so responsible, he'll understand. He'd probably be too busy with work anyway. A whole conversation about my life and my plans, without ever actually involving me in the discussion. I pulled up my banking app and started scrolling through the past year of transactions. $600 here for household bills, $350 there for car repairs, $200 for mom's medication, $800 for the water heater, $400 for groceries. On and on, payment after payment, adding up to thousands and thousands of dollars I'd handed over without hesitation, because they were family and they needed help. While I was sacrificing everything, they were planning beach vacations and retirement parties and family gatherings that specifically excluded the person funding their lifestyle. She picked up on the second ring, and I could hear music and laughter in the background. Blake, I was wondering if you'd call. How are you, sweetheart? I'm okay, I said. Just found out everyone's at your retirement party. There was a pause on her end, and the background noise got quieter, like she'd moved away from the group. Your mother said you were staying behind to help with the kids. I thought that sounded strange. Why didn't you come? I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Because nobody told me about it. They just assumed I'd babysit like always. Rita let out a sharp breath. That doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. Your mother mentioned how much you've been helping out since you moved back, but it sounds like they've been taking advantage of you, honey. Yeah, I said. I'm starting to realize that. Well, listen to me. You're 22 years old. You shouldn't be tied down playing parent to your sister's kids or bankrolling your parents' household. You've done more than enough. Move out, set some boundaries, let them figure out their own problems. Hearing those words from an adult family member who wasn't trying to guilt me into compliance felt like permission I didn't know I needed. We talked for another 10 minutes, and by the end of the conversation, I'd made up my mind. It was time to leave. That weekend, while my entire family enjoyed themselves at the lake, I did three things. First, I called the landlord and informed him that I would no longer be contributing to the rent starting next month. My parents would need to take over the full payment. I sent him an email confirming this in writing, making sure there was documentation that I'd given proper notice. Second, I started packing. Not obviously, I didn't want them to know what I was doing until I was ready to drop the bomb, but I packed up everything important. My documents, my clothes, my electronics, anything that mattered. I filled up my car completely and moved it all to a storage unit I rented across town for $40 a month. Third, I found an apartment. Not in the city like I'd originally planned. I couldn't quite afford that yet, but I found a decent studio apartment about 15 minutes from work, affordable on my salary without the burden of supporting an entire household. It wasn't fancy, just 500 square feet with a Murphy bed and a kitchen the size of a closet. But it was mine. I signed the lease that Sunday afternoon while my family was still at the lake, probably taking more photos of the fun family memories I wasn't part of. When they came back Sunday evening, everyone was sunburned and happy, carrying in bags of leftover food and souvenirs. Vanessa immediately started showing Mom photos on her phone. Dylan was laughing about some inside joke with Dad. Sophie and Noah were exhausted but wired, running around with their new toys from the gift shop. Nobody asked how my weekend was. Nobody mentioned that I'd been excluded. They just carried on like it was completely normal that I'd stayed home alone while they all went on vacation together. I waited until Monday evening to tell them. Came home from work, ate dinner with everyone like normal, then stood up from the table and delivered the news. I'm moving out, I said plainly, end of the week. The silence was immediate and total. Vanessa's fork clattered onto her plate. Mom's jaw literally dropped. Even Dad looked surprised, though he quickly tried to mask it with his usual stern expression. You're what? Mom asked, her voice shaking. Moving out. I found an apartment. I'll be gone by Saturday. But you can't just leave, Mom said, her voice rising. What about the bills? What about helping with the kids? Not my problem anymore, I said, echoing words Vanessa had used more than once when I'd asked her to handle her own responsibilities. Vanessa recovered from her shock enough to scoff dramatically. Wow, so you're just going to abandon us? How selfish can you be? I turned to look at her directly. Selfish? Vanessa, you've been living here rent-free for 2 months, dumping your kids on me constantly, and contributing absolutely nothing to this household. If anyone's selfish, it's you. That's enough, Blake, Dad said sternly. No, it's not enough, I shot back. I've been paying most of the bills for this house for almost a year. I've been watching your grandkids for free multiple times per week. I've put my entire life on hold to help this family. And last weekend, you all went on vacation without me and didn't even bother telling me about it. You just assumed I'd stay home and house sit. Mom's face crumpled, but I didn't let it sway me. Not this time. I've already notified the landlord that I won't be contributing to rent anymore, I added. So you'll need to figure that out. And Vanessa, you'll need to find actual childcare because I won't be available anymore. Are you kidding me? Vanessa looked like she might explode. You're just going to leave us with all these problems? How are we supposed to manage? Figure it out, I said. Like adults. The next morning, I loaded the last of my boxes into my car. Mom stood on the porch looking devastated, but she didn't say anything. Dad stayed inside, avoiding the whole situation entirely. And Vanessa didn't even bother coming downstairs. As I pulled out of the driveway for the last time, I felt this overwhelming sense of relief wash over me. I was finally free. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.